Welcome to the Simply Well podcast. I'm your host, Sadie Jane, and we are here to talk about the wild within us with the gorgeous Ashely, my dear friend, who's become a dear friend after meeting her through the year-long container Sacred Rebels. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, Ashely, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Let's just get straight into it.
Yeah. Okay. So I am an inner child coach. I am a breathwork facilitator. Thank you to Sacred Rebels. My medicine is just to really be able to dig deep and find the box of rules that we live in and be able to let go of the rules that we've been given by others or ourselves, and to find our freedom and to live authentically and to feel good in our bodies.
So tell me why that is so important to you. Like, obviously, I feel like something's only important to us if we've only been through our own journey of like, oh, I didn't feel safe in my body, or oh, I didn't feel whatever it was. So tell us a little bit about how you got to that point.
Yeah, I grew up in very religious in a very religious family, and also just, society, seeing everybody like going on all these diets. And I remember watching like my aunts and my mom and like all these people in my family just go on these like crazy diets. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like, that was just crazy to me. And I remember also just feeling like on the inside, I was like, okay, if I just follow all these rules, I'll get by. I'll like slide under. Nobody will notice me. Nobody will get mad at me. I won't poke anybody. And so if I just follow everybody else's rules, then I could feel good. But really, that just started causing like a lot of pain on the inside and a lot of uncomfort in my body, right? Everything starts with energy. And so like dis-ease in the body, really, that all started coming out. And so whether it was just came out by physical symptoms, I was like a ball of anxiety all the time because I was just living life by everybody else's rules, and it just didn't feel good to me. And so I really had to start looking inward and start asking myself, like, what do I believe? Like, me, what do I believe? And that was like so pivotal for me. Plant medicine was a big part of my journey. And I didn't even realize that like things didn't have to be good or bad. They could just be. And that was so like freeing for me. Just being able to let myself just be like, oh, it just is what it is. And I don't have to name it bad or good or judge it or judge myself or other people. And just like release this huge like box I had around me.
Yeah. So where did it start? Were you feeling the call to find yourself more like in college, in high school? Where did it really begin?
So I would say it actually began with a boyfriend breaking up with me. I was after college. After like any of that type of schooling, I was dating this guy who really just wasn't treating me well, but I like didn't even know.
Yeah.
And he broke up with me, and like it just felt like my heart was shattered. And so finally at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to like do all these things. And so I went to therapy for years. I tried, different medications. They would all make me so sick because to me, the symptoms were showing me like, hey, this doesn't feel good to, to live this way or to think this way or whatever, like to be in these box of rules. And so I felt like I just was able to choose myself in that moment and say, okay, I'm done. I'm done. And so I just kept trying to take steps. And like the only steps that I knew at that time was like therapy or medication. And so I started down that path. And for a couple years later, I was on that path, and it was still just like, I mean, it kept me like surviving.
Are you talking about like meds? You got on meds?
I wouldn't even say got on meds, because I would just try them and like throw them up. Like it was like I would try and try and try. Like I can't even tell you how many I've like tried, but my body was like would reject them.
Okay.
Like, this isn't the answer for you.
Okay.
And so like it was very clear that that wasn't the answer for me. But I just kept trying because that's the only thing I knew how to, that was the
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
solution I knew. And so then I went to a different like psychiatrist and then was introduced to ketamine. And ketamine therapy really just, that was like the medicine for me that like let go of that judgment, that rule, that box of rules. And
The
not to,
fake rules of like, oh, prescription medication's so good, and all of these other medications that are against the rules or quote unquote illegal are bad.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And like thankfully I didn't like know very much about it
Yeah.
at the time because I probably would have like talked myself out of it.
Were you just like a inherent rule follower?
Oh yeah, always.
Okay.
Always. Always, always. Like,
But it was killing you also.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And which was so funny because, sometimes people will say, like, oh, that's a good thing, whatever. And I'm like, it killed me inside. Like,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
not following what felt good to me. And then these things were like manifesting in my body. And I was just this ball of anxiety and I was
Yeah.
like depressed. And I was like, my house would be a disaster. And I like couldn't function.
And isn't that wild about rules? Like they say that this is like the universal rule of this or this or that, but like actually, well, and even not even universal rules, because for me, universal rules is just like kindness. Of course, that's something that we should all follow, but the rules within any kind of like religion or foundation or like institution, then you're like, well, that actually doesn't work for me. And then it just confuses people because wait, isn't it supposed to work for me? Because they told me that if I follow this, it'll be okay.
I like didn't even know it was an option to not do any of these things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like everybody around me was doing the thing, like following all the rules. And I remember even like having friends that weren't a part of the church. And I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be confusing.
Yeah.
Until you grow up and you're like, okay, here we go.
Oh, wow.
So ketamine, tell me about it.
Yeah. So I remember my very first experience with ketamine. I was like scared shitless. I was so scared.
And before then, you didn't have any other experience with any kind of medicines outside of like a prescription. Okay.
And so, yeah, so I like had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think I actually heard like 2 weeks before I heard Whitney Cummings, like the comedian, talk about it on her podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever, like it lit something inside of me, like find out what that is.
Mm.
But I never like looked.
So you weren't even in the spiritual space to know that there would be other things.
No.
You found it through a
psychiatrist.
Comedians. Oh, you found it through a psychiatrist, but also through a comedian's podcast.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And they were just talking, like, it wasn't like they weren't like recommending it or anything, but like the second they said it, like this visceral response in my body was like, what is that? Like, go find what that is.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, my psychiatrist was like, have you ever been to ketamine? I was like, yes, tell me more.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, the first time I like went and sat, so I remember feeling like I was just like in this really dark room. It felt like no walls, no windows, but I wasn't scared. It wasn't scary. I was just like, oh, I just have to get out of here. I was just like, oh.
This is when you're in the medicine and you're hooked up to an IV.
It was a shot, so it wasn't an IV.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and I was like, oh, I just have to get out of here. But I like didn't know what that meant at the time. And so I like kept sitting with it for a while and then like, of course, had a lot of insights and whatever at the time. And that was when I first started like really looking into like Dr. Nicola Pira's work and like her book, How to Do the Work. That was like one of the first like.
And you just found her on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just found her on Instagram and so I'm working with ketamine and like.
Well, and also you had. Sorry, I did not interrupt. I just want to paint the picture. You had a degree in psychology,
sociology.
So you had been kind of in the world of bettering ourselves and bettering our bodies. You had a bachelor's.
I thought I wanted to be a therapist. Like that was my goal.
But even in that schooling, it didn't lead you to a place of like remembrance of yourself.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, the schooling was like, how do I get an A?
Totally.
Like, I don't even,
Memorize the things.
yeah, I like don't really remember much of it because it
Mm,
was like, oh, remember it for this portion. And then it was like, okay, great, next. And
mhm,
then I would move on.
mhm.
But
Okay,
yeah.
so you had that degree and then like little signposts maybe of being
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, here, we're gonna give you this. Oh, maybe you go into this degree and you'll, but then like finally it started like clicking these
Yeah.
different places. Yeah.
Well, of course, because like none of it I was ready for because I was like living in this box. And if like somebody would have been like, here, try this, I'd have been like, you are
No way.
crazy.
Yeah.
You are crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying that. I'm not like a druggie or what,
Right. Totally.
all the things that come with it.
Grew up following Ashely, man.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Okay. So then ketamine, you're there and you're like, wait, this isn't scary.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember even having conversations with my friends. And I'm like, do you know that everything is not bad or good? Like,
All
what
of a sudden
is
it's like,
this?
what? Like
Yeah.
neutrality. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then I could just be. I like I felt like being was not even on my radar. Like I had to be
Mm,
proving myself, proving
mhm.
my worthiness, proving that I was a good person or whatever. Like I wasn't able to like enjoy life at
Yeah.
all. And I remember the last time that I sat with ketamine, which was about a year from the first time. I remember like feeling so free and just like feeling floating, whatever. And I like saw the box. I was like outside and I saw the box and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm free. I
This
am
was the
free.
sixth or the, how many times did you do ketamine?
Oh, several. I
Okay.
don't even know.
Okay. But it was like towards the end
Yeah.
where you saw you were out of the box.
Yeah. I was like, it was a year
Oh,
after. And I was like, oh
oh,
my
a year
gosh, I'm
after.
out.
I missed that part.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're
Oh
great.
my gosh. Amazing.
Yeah.
And tell me like what happened just because I'm curious, like between that year. So like you do ketamine, you realize neutrality is possible and it just starts to shift everything.
Yeah. So I was working in in the finance industry at the time. And when I did ketamine, I took a leave of absence because I remember I would just sit at my desk and be completely dissociated. Like I felt like like I was like watching my body.
Mm,
Like it was just hovering over. And I just remember being like, I don't even know, like, how do I even call this next person? How do I even do
mm-hmm,
this next
mm-hmm,
thing? Because every tiny little thing just felt so hard.
mm-hmm.
And so,
Which is why you were trying all those meds.
mhm,
You had your breakup. You were
mhm,
just like, who am I without somebody outside of myself?
mhm. I just, yeah. And so at that point, um, so sorry. So I took the leave of absence and then I went back to work and I was like, why? I'm like, why am I doing this? Like
Mm,
this is crazy business. I do not want to work a 9 to 5.
yeah.
Like this is
Like the
miserable.
veils are going, they're
Yeah.
removed, and now you're like, whoa.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
was like, okay, how do I get to the next step though? I can't like just quit my job.
totally.
And so eventually, like maybe 6 months later, I just quit. And I was like, I'm done. And I'm going to start my own business. And I don't know what it is yet.
Wow.
And I started by, I had taken a bunch of courses on like herbology. And like I started doing some things there. And then I was like, physical products, this is hard. I don't know if I want to do this. And I, of course, I like knew that I wanted to do like to help people
Mm,
because I've always been like the friend that people come to for advice. And I've
mm-hmm,
always been like, you know, that person. And I love it. Like I
mm-hmm.
love holding space for people, holding space for women and men and, you know, anybody that is just looking for the next thing just to help themselves, looking for that little
Yeah,
like light within them
yeah.
or, you know, whatever that is. And so, yeah, I quit my job and I took this, I had a bonus of $5,000 and I took that and I did a retreat course. And so I was in this retreat course for 30 days or something like that. I was like, okay, I'm going to run retreats.
I have no business, but I'm going to run retreats. That's, you got to start somewhere. I love it.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to run retreats. And then within that, Liz Hayes, so she's the person that I learned like inner child work from.
Yes.
She came and talked for like 15 minutes. And I just remember being like, what? I
Yeah.
just was like, my mind was
Yeah.
blown.
And that was the
Blown.
first time you had any interaction with the inner child.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, duh.
Like I've heard of inner child work, but like to me, it was like, I don't really want to go back and dig in my trauma. And like, that sounds pokey and no.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that I had like learned it and the way
Mm-hmm.
that like Liz had taught it, it was like so gentle
Mm-hmm.
and so supportive and nurturing
Mm-hmm.
and just like, let me hold you
Mm-hmm.
while you are like learning these
Mm-hmm.
things and figuring these out and looking at these hard parts of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I was like all in. I was
Yeah.
all in, all in,
Yeah.
which then, of course, led me to you.
Yeah.
Well, first
So
of all,
how did that even happen?
I
I
don't
don't even
even,
know.
I had been following you for, I don't even know how long you've been on Instagram since before Henry was born.
So like Idaho days?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I've been following you forever.
So when I was doing my spiritual thing, you weren't there yet. Were you like, what is she doing? This is weird.
There was a while I unfollowed you.
Yes, always.
But
Raise your hand if you've unfollowed me before. It
but I
happens a
don't
lot.
think it was because of that. It was because of like the exercise thing. I totally had like
Oh,
shame around moving my body and
yeah.
all
Well,
of
I
that.
was really unhealthy. I got a little extreme, as we all know now. You know, everybody's just trying to figure out everything.
Yeah, we're all
But
just trying to figure it
and
out.
as a projector, you know this too now from Sacred Rebels learning human design. But like my aura is just so intense, and people just can't
And now I
handle
love it.
it. It's so now she can't get enough of my aura. Okay, so you followed me and then you refollowed me and
Mhm.
you just kind of started seeing. I mean, obviously you were just following that.
Yeah, and I don't know, you would just sort of pop in and out of my feed so often,
Yeah.
whatever. And then I remember seeing like you talking about Sacred Rebels, and I was like, "Ooh, like that sounds interesting," but I don't know. I just like finished up this big container, and I was like, I don't know if I want to hop into something else or if I just want to like stand, whatever. And I like didn't have to decide; the universe decided for me.
Yeah.
And like Liz looped me in with you,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it was just like, okay, here you are, you're going with this, and like Sacred Rebels has changed my whole life.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is it exactly.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
tell me how and tell me where you were at like before Sacred Rebels. Like so you just done this year-long container. You jumped from leaving your job, not knowing where you really are landing, but understanding now all of a sudden you have this opportunity of living your life in this neutral state or living your life with this sovereignty of understanding maybe I have my own beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start taking all these different courses and then what? Like where are you at that point before Sacred Rebels?
Before Sacred Rebels, I was like flying in the ethers. I don't even know where I was.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was not grounded. That
Yeah.
was like I was learning all of these like spiritual things and understanding them, but like I was having a hard time like connecting them to like being here
Yeah.
in this like physical vessel in the earth. And so I was just sort of lost. Like I had a lot of clarity, but I was also lost.
Yeah.
And so I remember like the first Sacred Rebels class, you like opened the ceremony and then you like went into like radical sovereign accountability. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, like that conversation I'm still like integrating in every little detail of my life
Mm-hmm.
because I was choosing to be a victim in so much
Mm-hmm.
of my life without even realizing it. It
Mm-hmm.
was just like how it was. And to take accountability for any part of your life, like it's so empowering.
Yeah.
It's so empowering.
It's so interesting because in the spiritual community, I think especially when somebody, you know this now that you've taken ascension, we get so cut off, like our crown chakras are so cut off because we get bitter or we get sad or we have spiritual or religious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens and you're trying to find something outside of yourself, I think we do get floaty because
Mm-hmm.
then it's like we're so upset about the roots that we had. And so we're also cut off from the root and also the crown. And then it's like, where is the existence? Where is the marriage between the heaven and the earth?
Mm-hmm.
And I see this also in the spiritual community where people are getting all these tools, or maybe not even tools, just like embodiment, the embodiment of like, oh, I'm my own human. Oh, I don't have to like follow any rules. But that's not even the rules of the 3D. Like there has to be form. Even in Mother Nature, you see her in the form of the seasons and in the form of sprouting things and resting during things. And so to be able to find or have a space in the spiritual community that brings that form is so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why I created Sacred Rebels. But beyond the form, tell me why, like, what was life changing for you?
Yeah, I just want to say this as well. Like, I went from having the 9 to 5 job and hating form so much. And I think that's why I was like so floaty as well. Because I was like, I hate
Well, you were
form.
just like, F all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not playing this game
Well,
anymore.
form is demonized, right?
Yes.
And it's like
Yes.
everything that is really holy is demonized. So,
Yes.
sexuality or form or even your own spiritual power or your own power in general. Like, we are told because it's outside of ourself, that form. If you're ever going to have form, Ashely, it's only because someone else told you how to have the form in their own way
Yep.
rather than,
As
oh,
a
wait,
rule,
yeah.
essentially.
And you get to have, and in the radical sovereign accountability, you get to have your own form. You get to create it. You just don't even, it's just the pendulum of like
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah, totally. I totally was swinging one way, went the other way, and I was like, okay, wait. Like, but finding your own form and saying, like, okay, getting curious, like, what works for me?
Yeah.
What do I like even? Like, that's
Yeah.
not even a question that we ask ourselves that much. It's like,
Yeah.
what is it that I want and what is it that I like?
Yeah.
And so being able to do that in Sacred Rebels, just like sitting down, you would ask questions like, what do you want to share? Like, what lights you up, especially in human design, right? I'm a generator.
Mm-hmm.
So following what lights me up is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting into, radical, radical sovereign accountability and like understanding fear, and then going into like the body and understanding the body, right? Like I had a horrible relationship with my body. It was like, well, I'm overweight anyway, so I'm not going to exercise. I don't want to move, or like exercise was a form of punishment for moving my body.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was that month of like earth
Mm-hmm.
body, of like somatic movement. I was like, what even is somatic
Mm-hmm.
movement? And just moving how my body wants to move,
Mm-hmm.
so freeing,
Mm-hmm.
like so freeing. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a class and it's like, okay, no, wait, I don't have to follow every
Mm-hmm.
little detail, because I would be like in, a yoga class or whatever type of class. I'd constantly be looking around like, am I doing this
Mm-hmm.
right? And which then was like the purpose of the whole, session of it was like gone, because I was
Mm-hmm.
just concerned if I was doing it right. And it
Mm-hmm.
actually isn't about that. It's,
Yeah, I mean, the root word of yoga is to yoke, which is to yoke literally means connection. And I think, like I said, it's a really interesting dance between discipline and flow. And the one thing that I love about the yoga that I teach in Sacred Rebels is the fact that you are your own guru. And people say that, but do they actually mean it? And so many times we lose connection with ourselves because we're worried or that we're going to do it wrong. But really and I learned a lot of this I learned even just being a labor nurse. No amount of education, no, PhD, no amount of births that I help can actually ever equate to the mother's intuition and to what the mother knows. And yet we're taught always to look outside ourselves or go to a doctor if we're sick to tell us or diagnose us. And of course, there's space for that. But when we are literally conditioned to believe everything that, even as simple as movement, that has also been demonized then.
mm-hmm.
So to give people back, and it was interesting to see now, obviously Sacred Rebels, the first year was last year. So you're a part of this, essentially this beta group, but it's wild to even see this concept of what does your body want? Like literally being in the middle of yoga and turning to the camera and be like, now flow.
Mm-hmm.
And to see like the stillness, to see
Everybody
like
freeze.
the paralyzed freeze of like, but what if nobody's here to tell me if I'm doing it right or wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What then?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to that, like, right or wrong, that
Mm-hmm.
it's right or it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's neither of it. It just is what it is. And it's how your body wants to move, which means it's inherently good. Like,
Yeah.
it's inherently, that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And embodying that. So I would love to go through every element, but I'm sure we will. But I'm curious if there was one that was like the most prolific moment for you.
Hypnotherapy, Air Mind Month.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy was huge for me. Well, and not that I a lot of the things like inner child work, I'd already been like diving in, and I was already doing hypnotherapy in a way without like realizing it was hypnotherapy. But just learning more about the subconscious mind and how it works, it was like so freeing, because I think a lot of times when we have a belief or something, yeah, something that we believe, it's like then we stack like, oh, then I'm bad, and I'm like, this must mean this and this must mean this, and we just start stacking like what it means about you. And to realize, like, to get to the core of things and to be able to release them like through hypnotherapy was huge for
Yeah.
me.
Did you have, I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't plan this at all, but I'm curious if you had any belief that you were able to uncover and heal specifically. I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of them,
I
but
know. I'm like, how do I just choose one? Um, a lot of it was around money.
mm,
Like it was big around money.
yeah.
Um, that like money didn't like flow easily to me. That I realized the biggest thing was that I was like put back in this memory when I was like really, really young of like my family members talking about other people having money and like them like sort of making them bad because they had money. And I remember and at that point I had made the connection that, oh, if I get money, then I'm not no longer going to be like a part of my family
Mm,
or be included, or
mm,
I will be a bad person. And so that was like a huge thing for me, is like
wow.
literally,
So you were like restricting money
oh,
without even
without even
realizing.
realizing it. I was like mean to it because I was like, oh, I'm going to be bad. I can't earn too much. Like, and even like talking about money, especially around family, I'm like, don't say anything. Like, don't let them know.
Yeah. So how did you shift it? Of course, now identifying the belief, and then that was in Airmine month, so it was toward the beginning of the year, and then how did you see it shift throughout the year?
Yeah, I think that, well, just realizing obviously that
Yes.
money is not bad. Like money, and you had gone into this especially in the womb month too, is
Hmm.
that like have a relationship with money. Money is energy, and it wants to flow through you, and it wants to work with you, and it wants to support you and hold you. And even just like feeling that, like, what does money holding you feel like?
Mm,
And for me, it actually feels like it gives me confidence. Like I can feel my chest raise, my head turn up. Like I feel free because it's not like just trapping you. Like it's not,
hmm.
it's just totally different
Hmm.
energy. Like, what does money holding you feel like?
Hmm.
It's literally just like so freeing. And it's like, oh, I have so many options, and I could do this and this and this and whatever. And before I wasn't even thinking about that. I wouldn't even let myself like actually dream because I was like so fearful of feeling disappointed.
Mm,
And so like letting myself even dream and like
hmm.
going to these dream spaces was like huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Is this after you had this realization? I Ashley has this really incredible modality that she got downloaded this year. Did the modality download after you had this belief change shift, the money
No, I
belief?
downloaded before. It was right before Sacred Rebels, but like I was totally keeping it a secret.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like for the longest time, like I don't like didn't know how I felt about it because I was like, oh, people aren't gonna believe me or whatever. But like the proof is there.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, I asked that because I wonder how much we are. I know it's all subject to the specific person, but I wonder how much we're holding away from ourselves, like holding back because of all of these old, conditioned beliefs that are holding so much space within us.
mhm.
So by you being like, "Oh, okay, if I can feel the feeling and just by opening my chest and lifting my chin, what downloads are going to come through?" And if anything, maybe the confidence to be able to share.
And stand in my truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge. Well, and also just like realizing that money isn't bad, but money is good, and I'm a good person if I have it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like, and I can help
Yeah.
people if I have it.
Yeah.
And not even if I have, like, whatever. Like I can help people by by giving money too, or
Mhm.
letting them give me
Mhm.
money. I think that's a huge thing. Like investing in myself has been the greatest gift. Like I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars helping myself, and I never will regret any of that,
Mm.
because the second that you like hand over your money, it's like this huge everything happens for you. Like, even if I just paid you for Sacred Rebels and you didn't talk at all, like that, the energy does its work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it does its work. And so by you investing in yourself, it's like huge. And so by opening myself up and saying like, okay, like you can choose into yourself by like giving your money, like that's actually really big.
Really big. It's the best investment you could do.
Yeah.
And yet, how many of us do actually feel like we're worth it, or feel like, wait, that's not going to feed me. It's not going to shelter me, although it will more than anything ever. But it's this idea that we're just supposed to survive
Mm-hmm.
rather than what's on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to go back to that modality because I think it's so cool and I want to share about it here. But you did have your most successful month after you quit your job during Sacred Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
So was that after the belief shift?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. Tell us
Yeah.
about like the money that has now come in. Since now we're talking about that energetic of money, we can just stick with that.
Yeah. So I had my biggest month since I quit my 9 to 5. That was in the summer. And I had launched my course called Nourish You, all about like the energetics of food and our bodies, and not about like rule following when it comes to food or calorie counting or macros or nothing like that, but like actually tuning into the food, which might sound like crazy by like on the surface, but like um every food gives you different energy and holds different energy. And like I love to garden, and so even like my connection with the food was just has been huge for me in my journey. And so I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like do a course about it. And I did my first course, like just group course like that. And yeah, it was my most successful month.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
And since then, you do a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I do one-on-one coaching. I do breath work. I do these sessions, which we sort of talked about. I could give more information. So, essentially, it's like when we have allergies or intolerances, or again, just dis-ease in our bodies. Um, they're there because of a specific event, whether it happened to you or an ancestor or whoever. You picked up like that energy. And so, if you are like eating an apple and somebody comes in and tells you like some traumatic news, whatever, your body goes into fight or flight. Well, your body might then associate that apple with danger. And so then you might develop an intolerance to it or things like that. And so by using like hypnotherapy, I actually use within this modality as well. And it's actually really cool because we're able to get into the depths of like why is your body
Rejecting
yeah
whatever it is.
yeah or finding this as like
Mm-hmm.
danger. And it always is related to like some sort of memory, whether it was yours or something happened to a family member, because of course our energetic bodies pass down information to try and keep us safe.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
you're literally healing people's allergies essentially through hypnotherapy.
yeah.
And this
And this,
modality,
yeah.
this combination of whatever it is that downloaded into your
Mm-hmm.
soul. I've
Mm-hmm.
watched it firsthand. It's really, really incredible and powerful. And it's just so cool to see what happens when you risk everything on yourself. Essentially, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And now you get to, help others. And so you're doing all these different modalities, and how cool to, download something so unique. And then also how it works and flows into everything else that you've learned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even just like breath work, like
Yeah.
tuning people into their breaths and like just letting us get back into our bodies and like breathing that's more than just like this shallow breath that we just always are breathing into.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so freeing.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the earth body and how somatics was powerful, and then air mind and how hypnotherapy was powerful. And let's go on to soul, to the soul water. What was the most powerful part about that for you for Sacred Rebels?
Oh, human design for sure.
Yeah.
Just being able to figure out the way that I work to work with the way that I work.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so human design is so validating because it's like, oh, that's why I am the way that I am, and it isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like I think that a lot of times we think that the way that we work is like weird or bad or shouldn't be like that. But when you actually like work with the way that you work, it's so freeing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Mm-hmm.
freeing.
That's why it's part of the soul water month, because our soul is so vast. Obviously, it's not in this human form, but what I noticed that human design does is it gives us a tangible way to connect with our soul, because even our soul, we are, in these meat suits, we're in these bodies, and so much of what we learn in the spiritual work is outside of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can understand how that works with us, it gives us, like you said, validation to be like, okay, I don't have to do it like everyone else. I don't have to hustle. I can rest. I can wait to respond. Just because, maybe you have more energy doesn't mean that you actually, you have to do everything that everyone says, please do it, do it, do it. You get to just choose to what lights you up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just been interesting to see how that just is like, I mean, of course, I've gotten to know you so well, and just to see how innately you're so good at things, but because it like lights you up. So you already have that talent.
And realizing also, like you said, I don't just have to follow because I would just say yes to things because I felt bad or whatever, even if it didn't like feel good to me.
Yeah.
And to give myself permission, because it was like, oh, if I don't say this, yes to this, will other opportunities not come or whatever. But actually, the more that I like listen to like what lights me up, like all of a sudden I'm flooded with like opportunities, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to mention the opportunity that you had to do all these different options for these different companies, and you got a chance to say, no, that doesn't light me up.
Mm-hmm.
And how cool it is that once you say yes to invested in yourself, all these opportunities open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big time.
So tell me about the womb fire month. What was the most powerful for you there?
Oh my gosh, I think this is the month that scared me the most. I like did not want to go there. Well, like I did, but I also was like, I had so much fear
Mm-hmm.
around sexuality and around womb spaces and yonis, and like that like terrified me. But when I like actually like let myself go there, even just basic like cycle syncing, that was so big. Like I had an awareness of cycle syncing and I'd like sort of applied little things, but I the container of Sacred Rebels just gives you so much space. Like that whole month was like dedicated to that. And that was like what I focused on. And so it was like it gives you space to actually embody it.
Yeah.
It's like I had heard all this information, but like I didn't really allow myself space to actually embody it or practice it or try and see like what do I like, what is it, what works for me in my body. And so being able to actually go there and let myself just experiment and try was so huge. And now like honoring, when I'm on my moon, when I'm on my period, I allow myself to like go into like this deep rest. And that literally before that would like scare me. Like I can't just like piece out of all my things and then what? But I noticed when I actually would do it, when I would allow myself that rest, then the times that I wasn't on my period, I could like bust stuff out. Like it felt easy. It wasn't like, it was just like I had more energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything then envelops that
Like
and
all
that
falls into
energy.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it all. Let's see, where do we go from here? Why don't you just touch on like the business side of things? Because we talked about the embodiment of the elements. And then, obviously in between the embodiment of the elements within us, we then get to go and dive deep into earth business, water business, air business. So tell me about like what was the biggest takeaway for all of that?
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway from all of that was just like not even being scared to share.
Yeah.
Like I can let that go and just share like this is who I am. But even like the littlest things like setting up your LLC or whatever, like that felt like the most daunting task. When I did it, it probably took me 30 minutes and less than
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah. Totally.
I was like, are you kidding me? I
Yeah.
sat there and waited so long to do this for
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah, I find it interesting. Of course, Sacred Rebels is for anybody who's wanting to better themselves. That's how I'll always promote it that way. Even if you have multi-million dollars or if you don't have a source of income, like there's always something that you can learn from Sacred Rebels. But what's cool about, these women that are coming in that they're like, oh, we just got another Sacred Rebel. It just showed up. Hey. What's cool about these women that are coming in that are like, oh, no, I don't want a business. I'm like, yeah, that's what you think. But like, it's actually not who doesn't want more income? One. Two, it's not as complicated as you think it is, especially since it's like weaved so perfectly into Sacred Rebels. And three, it's like, why wouldn't you want more income? Like, why wouldn't you want to be able to weave this magic? And it's cool to see how many people found that after the year
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I do have this. Oh, I would love to do this. It's so easy. It's so easy to be like, oh, I have something. It's not, it doesn't seem easy, but the way that it's put together in Sacred Rebels makes it that way
Yeah.
by like having that foundation.
I think when you like dive deep into yourself and find like your light, then you start just like glowing for people. And then people are like, what are you doing?
Totally.
What are you doing? I want it. And then you're like, oh, like actually, like, you know, a lot of these things that we're embodying are actually very easy concepts, but like they feel so hard because we have beliefs, limiting beliefs, or whatever, like things in the way that they feel hard. But when you allow yourself to like just take this step and like just go there, it's just so
So,
freeing.
yeah, it's so empowering. And, you know, like you said, the belief system, that's why it's so, I was going to actually ask you this. Do you feel like, I guess you already answered this, but I noticed that you mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast how you're like, oh, the question was so powerful for me. So every month we have monthly guides
Mm-hmm.
where I have specific shadow questions connected to that specific month. And what I really desired to do in Sacred Rebels is the shadow work of everything. So that, I mean, literally, ultimately, all year is just a remembering of what you actually believe and what you don't believe. And then what maybe you don't believe something you thought that you did, we're pulling the root out. And then we get to plant a new seed of what it is that you believe. And it really all has to do with that. So do you feel like it was more the embodiment? It was the monthly guide? It was the questions? Was it just you like fully saying, yes, I commit to this and doing it? What was it specifically that made you click? Like, what specific embodiment practice really helped it all click for you?
I feel like that's like it's a little bit different throughout the year, like
Yeah.
what through whatever I did. But I think the biggest thing was that I just said yes to myself, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm all in. Like,
Yeah.
what does it feel like for me to go all in?
Yeah. Ashely was actually the very first one to be certified in elemental life coaching. Hey, we have a handful of people that are like obviously finishing their certification and becoming certified, and you're doing it. You're already offering classes and you're putting that elemental life coaching into practice. And I mean, you just went all in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All in, yeah. And just letting yourself, like, if you're gonna do something, like, what letting yourself say, like, okay, well, what does it feel like for me to be like, I'm in this.
Yeah.
I'm choosing myself so deeply that like this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because it was so clear to me, like you know when something's a yes for you, like you get like a visceral response to it. And so when you're receiving that, it's like, okay, can I let myself choose like that I'm all in? Because I didn't know like where I would end up. I mean, I still don't really know necessarily, right? Like we're all, once we get to the next level and we've embodied it, it's like there's
Oh, here
always,
we go. Here's
more.
the next. Here's the next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it feels, I don't know, I didn't know what to expect. And I think sometimes we were sort of talking about this earlier, like the unknown can be terrifying.
Yeah.
Not knowing, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like spending this much money is, I don't know what's going to happen. Am I crazy? Blah, blah, blah,
So
whatever.
how'd you push through that then? How'd you push through the moments of fear where even like signing up or saying, okay, I'm going to create this course. We'll see if people sign up. Okay, now I'm going to start doing these breath works. Like,
Getting curious.
yeah.
Like it's all for me. Anything that comes into my life is because I let the curiosity come in and say, well, what if?
Yeah.
Like, what if it turns out great?
Mm-hmm.
And feel the possibility.
Or like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
That's like another good, curious question.
Yeah. The worst that could happen is I paid $5,000 and I pay it off and whatever. But like, that's never, no, like, that's never even, like, the universe has got your back so hard.
Especially
Like,
when you say yes to yourself.
oh my gosh. Yeah. When you choose yourself and choose what lights you up and what feels good to you, like your whole world changes.
Yeah.
Which again, the unknown with that could be scary, but there's also
Totally.
like, our minds can be like very limiting in the way that we think, or that we can only dream so much. And it's like, well, what if it's better than you expected?
Yeah.
What if more comes?
Yeah.
And like just tuning into that energy instead of the fear of it, of like that possibility, and allowing it to be like, oh, well, what if it could just be better?
Yeah. And it always can be,
And it always, it always
especially if you choose
is.
yourself.
And I just love to also just like play like, okay, well, show me how it's going to be better then.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Okay. Well, if it's going to be better, then just show
just show
me.
me. And then it always, it's like, you're like shocked by all the little synchronicities that come into your life because you're like, wait, I wasn't actually expecting this to
Totally.
happen.
You're like, wait, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wait, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
these beautiful signs.
All of it.
And it all starts with choosing yourself.
Yeah. Which I think that you have said this, that choosing yourself might be the hardest thing you ever do, but it's like the most rewarding, freeing thing that you will ever do for yourself is just keep choosing you.
Yeah.
Just keep choosing.
Okay. So I'm going to do something that's like absolutely on the fly. And Ashely. And I just want you guys to feel her medicine. And I wish I could get every single Sacred Rebel up here so that they could just all have them feel her medicine. But I'm feeling really called to just have you, Ashely, with your own medicine, speak to anybody out there who is wanting to say yes to Sacred Rebels and hasn't yet. So however that is, whether it's to their whoever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, okay. I'm just gonna close my eyes because like that's how I receive better. But so like I said, I'm like an inner child lover. And so I'm gonna talk to your inner child. Dear inner child, I see you, I'm aware of you. I see that you are aware of this mastermind, this course, that you can feel how powerful it is. You can feel this visceral yes in your body, and yet you are scared, and it's okay to be scared. I see that you are scared to say yes. And just letting yourself look over here. So inner children really love to look at like what they know and what they've experienced. And I just want to also preface this. My belief of the inner child is this human part of you, this part of you that wanted to experience this life, this human life here and now. It's not just this past version of you, it's the past, it's the present, and the future, this human part of you, the part of you that holds all of the beliefs and all of the emotions and the desires and all of everything like that. And so us as humans, us as inner children, we really like to look at like what we know and what we've experienced. And there might be even like people in your life that might pop up like, oh, they're going to judge me, or they're going to think I'm crazy, or like they are going to think these things are bad or wrong or evil or whatever. And what if you let yourself look at the other side? Even just noticing that switch in your body when I said that lightness, looking at the possibility of the unknown, of what you don't know, of what you haven't yet experienced. Letting yourself like just feel into that energy of saying yes. What does it feel like in my body when I say yes? When I choose myself, regardless of what anybody around me is saying or doing. What does choosing myself feel like? Even noticing, if you have your eyes closed here, noticing what's around you in this space. If you enter in this space of saying yes, what's around you? What does this place of saying yes feel like? What are you saying yes to? Like it might be like you're on a beach or in a forest, or like laying on the ground, just feeling so free and just being you. Or maybe you feel yourself teaching others and sharing your medicine, noticing like your light shine and how confident you feel and brave. Like there's like no questions. So letting yourself release this known, what you know, what you have experienced, because that doesn't have to play out. You can choose to let that go and let that be an experience of the past and choose to experience something new. of what does it feel like to choose yourself, to say yes to Sacred Rebels, to really honor the sacred rebel within you, rebelling against everything that you have been taught that doesn't align with you. Just feel it. I think this is like the biggest part of manifesting for me, is to like feel it. How does it feel like? Even imagining yourself like clicking the button and saying like submit, like what does that feel like? Like, oh my gosh, you're so pumped. I can like feel the chills, like you're dancing, you're jumping up and down, you just want to scream. Like, how are you going to celebrate yourself when you say yes? Like, that's so big, that's huge. Letting yourself just feel it, like you are a sacred rebel. It already is. What you want wants you. And because you feel it already, like because you have a desire for it, it means that like there's a version of you that already has it. And so let that version in, because she's here for you. She's here waiting, and you just have to take her hand and say, yes, we're doing it.
Dude. Where do I sign up? Stunning. I can feel that. I feel the energy. I feel the excitement. Thank you so much. That was so stunning. I see you, elemental life coach. It was so oh my gosh, I have so many downloads that I want to share or just like explain and express. But I think where I want to move next is just like feeling that excitement. Like, is there anything that you regret from the past year of like what you learned? Or is there anything that you didn't resonate with? Or is there anything that you're now like looking back like, man, anything?
No.
You can say it.
No. I'm literally like, no.
Yeah.
Like, even no, all of it. I like literally let myself be all in.
Yeah.
And like, will I teach all of the things? Like, probably not necessarily, but did they help me in my journey? Absolutely. And like, and not that I won't teach them, but like, certain clients will pop in and I'll be like, oh yeah, this and this and this, and whatever.
Yeah.
But like, is it my main thing? Not necessarily. I don't know. Like, I feel like I loved it all. I
Yeah.
loved it all.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about elemental life coaching is that you literally, like, for example, you just showed a perfect example of how you made it perfect for that specific client. So the people that are feeling the energy of sacred rebels, what would they feel like? What's the hesitation? What's the energy there? Sacred rebels, the mastermind, and then learning what's in there with the elemental life coaching is essentially using the elements within us to then cater to that person that you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, this is why I created this. And that's why people feel resonated with this, is like, if you're really going to coach somebody, the elements need to be embodied: the body, the soul, the womb, the mind, and then how you speak. When I do my inner child, it comes from the same space, but it's very different. And so we get to like mold that and shift that. And it's not a cookie cutter situation. It's really literally coming back home to you, being your own master, your own sovereign guide to whoever it is, and meshing and molding and having the structure even of rebel breath work, and then being able to create your own inner child work meditation at the end, or your own somatic movement, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like too, like when you allow yourself to like go deep within yourself and get curious, like you don't even have to be like the one that says it, but like you will just receive information and downloads and knowing of whatever it is that you need when you say yes to yourself and when you like let yourself go there.
Yep. Well, then it's just the idea of the Aquarian age of being your own guide.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're really going to manifest that, if we're really going to find that, then the requirement of ourselves is to then say, okay, I'm going to take a risk on myself. I'm going to take a risk on helping myself guide myself back to that.
Trusting yourself.
Trusting whatever it is that comes through, like this modality of healing these allergies like you've created, and then like being able to, okay, I dropped in this idea now because I said yes to myself. I now have all of these codes that now also encode into this modality that actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else to say? Anything else to add?
Just sign up. Just do it.
Just do it. It's so cool to watch you and to see, obviously there was 121 women that said yes. And it's been cool to see everybody on their own journey. And I mean, anywhere from like, oh, we just had a woman who's a teacher and she's like, I got teacher of the year and I'm more happy in my teaching job than I've ever been, to Ashely, who's like now doing, breathwork classes, to moms who are just like, I understand life better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just beautiful to see who gets called and who says yes, and then how that frequency just builds into this space.
Mm-hmm. And if you're questioning, like if you are even questioning, like, oh, is this for me? Like, it's probably for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it wasn't even like, if you're not questioning it, like you automatically are like, nope. Like if you think about how many like courses or opportunities you're scrolling past on Instagram, whatever, like there's so many that you're just like, no question. You're like, you glance at it and you know it's not for you. So if you're even in that questioning, like
even in the questioning, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. It's so true. Because I'll be like, oh, that looks exciting, or oh, I like that branding, or oh, that feels, and that is my answer.
Yeah.
It's always that's yes.
You know what it feels like in your body. And you might not like be consciously aware of it, but you know what it feels like when your body is saying yes.
Yeah. Well, and it gets easier and easier the more you say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It becomes clearer. Yeah.
So I'll say this and then I'll ask you the final question. But Ashely's actually going to be with us next year in Sacred Rebels. Yes. So I'm so excited for her to be there. She's going to help us out on like the logistical side, and she's just an incredible designer. So she's going to help us with design stuff, which like she did last year. She just like really went all in. So I'm like so excited to have you be there as well and helping. And oh my gosh, if you see any of the magazines, she also designed those. She was like a full student. And then also I found out she does amazing design work. So I was like, duh, come and help me design this. So it was amazing to not have to feel like I was doing it alone. It was just amazing to see and feel the frequency of it growing too, with all the people that were included and involved. So my last question for you is, what's your next step to like really coming back to the wild within you? What do you think like your next move is?
Really? I'm like in a place of really owning myself, right? Like taking that radical sovereign accountability. I mentioned how that's still integrating for me.
For sure.
In every bit of my life, but just standing here like I have the power to help people and myself, and I'm not stuck, and you are not stuck, and we can move through it, and we can feel good in our bodies and experience like what wellness feels like in our bodies. Like our natural state is wellness. It's not being sick. It's not feeling broken or whatever, unworthy or whatever story we have. Like our body is always trying to get us back into feeling good, and it's always available for us. And so really just owning that and offering it to anybody that is interested.
Yeah. Being brave enough to show up in that. So your wildness, how you come back, how you're harnessing the wildness is trusting that you deserve the wellness.
Yes.
And showing up online so that you can help others do the same.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty ballsy. Amazing. I am so here for it. What a beautiful, beautiful gift. And I have been changed because of you and you saying yes in your medicine. I'm just so grateful to know you, and every single Sacred Rebel that was in the Sacred Rebels 2023. I just hold them so, so, so purely and tenderly in my heart. Mm-hmm. And if you're feeling the called, if you have been called and you're feeling the call, say yes. The enrollment is open until March 8th. So you have time. If you've got questions, send me a DM and we will help you. And never forget to find the wild within you. And remember, you're never too much and always enough. My light and love honors season never compares to light and love within you. See you next time. Thank you, Ashely. Thank you. Oh, tell us where we can find you on Instagram.
Oh, at Ashely Wolfie, WOOLFIE.
Amazing. She posts about her breath work. She posts about her containers. She posts about her opportunities. So give her a follow.
Coming out with me.
Okay. Love you guys.